Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, my heavens, this sort of happened so quickly. Chris Potter is with us, editor of Pittsburgh City Paper.
Yep.
New edition comes out today.
Yep.
Came out.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
In neighborhoods, perhaps near you. I'm just looking at your email, and I see that Jess sent you a picture of a kitten, I guess.
Jess sends lots of pictures of kittens. All right,
Looky.
listen. What's wrong with that?
I don't know. Follow your bliss.
Kittens are cute as heck. Okay, so I'm still, yeah, you're not a sports fan, but I was at the doubleheader yesterday.
Yeah. Whoopee, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
You're so not into it.
Don't care.
I feel for you. Damn. It feels so good. It's so exciting. It's some total...
Well, you were a season ticket holder for many years. You had a stake in it, and...
I didn't give up on them much. I didn't.
I was going to say, wait a minute. I seem to recall having been in this very studio, and you were all like... Oh, every year I ask myself, is this the charity I want to support? So this notion that
But I answered yes. I answered yes year after year after year, all through the 90s and the aughts.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, there you go. So congratulations to you.
Oh, my God, unbelievable.
I abstractly understand what this is like for you.
Please, you don't. So unbelievable. We've already taken this series. Do you realize that?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm aware of the thing.
Christ.
I just don't care.
Jeez. Above all that, huh?
No, I just think.
And you know what's absurd? On the sports page, Post-Gazette, today, they had a big picture of some, Ziggy, what's his name, from the Steelers.
Oh, yeah, about his ballet thing.
Above the anything mentioning that the Pirates were the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
And had just taken 3 in a row from the Cardinals.
Yeah. Still a football town, no matter what you do, I guess.
Jeez.
But hey, he dances ballet or something, right?
I don't give a damn. I mean, come on.
I just read the lead of that story. It was like a bunch of tutu references, and
I didn't read it. I was so annoyed. I did not read it.
Oh, good. So, so I'm glad to see the Pirates' success hasn't precluded you from being incredibly annoyed by things. So that's good.
By the inordinate love of local media for all things Steelers, when in fact their season hasn't even begun.
Yeah. Well, they're at training camp now, so it's very exciting.
You are such a... All right.
I'm just...
You're trying to bother me.
Yeah.
Okay, let me think. And because I was out late and was celebrating, I was screaming a lot.
Yeah, I can see.
I have a very sore throat.
Yeah.
I do. I was obnoxious. I was loud.
Were you like heckling Cardinals fans?
No, I don't do that.
That's good.
I became friends with nice young men behind me.
From St. Louis? Or rooting
No,
for St. Louis?
no.
I see.
No. Okay.
You got a bunch of stuff. Hit me.
All right.
Go.
Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Yes.
You would not want to be a reporter for the Cleveland Plain Dealer today.
Because then you'd be in Cleveland.
Well, yes, but maybe not for long.
Okay. Yeah, right, yes.
Okay, so listen to what the reporters at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, listen to this email they get.
From management.
From management. It's beyond belief. Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
Your audience hasn't. Read it.
This is the voice of corporate America now. And because this is a media company, they're actually a little more probably what's the word? Just a little bit more
Politic
than
your average.
Than your average ham-handed corporatist. Okay, here we go. You've worked at the Cleveland Plain Dealer all your life.
And if that wasn't punishment enough...
That's right. You get this. In September of 2012, we announced that we would begin the process of designing the best business model.
And you're not part of it.
Yeah, right. That would safeguard the future of this enterprise.
And you're not part of it.
And uphold our journalistic standards. Blah, blah, blah. As we announced in our prior communication, to ensure that we are positioned to remain Northeast Ohio's #1 source for news.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In the ever-changing media environment.
Yeah.
The Plain Dealer Publishing Company will adopt a new home delivery schedule for the newspaper. Oh, so they really ease into this. Okay, they're just saying, okay, so we're just going to have the paper delivered in a different way. These changes, however, require a redesign of our operations that will result in a realignment of the workforce. You know, these squishy words. It means we're about to throw a bunch of you out of work, right?
Yeah.
These are difficult decisions.
Especially for you.
Yes, but they are necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
This, by the way, in the business is what we call burying the lead. and presumably a few careers as well.
Right,
but yeah.
I'm going to skip a few. And then the poor guys reading their emails over there in Cleveland read this. And this is going on right now. Oh, it's over. Oh, God. These poor people. From approximately 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., it's a little after that now, July 31st, employees in the editorial department will receive a phone call notifying them that they are either being separated from employment on that date or that they are not being separated from employment. Those are your two choices. Employees who are notified that they are not being separated should report for work at their next regularly scheduled time.
With their customary good morale and a smile on their face.
Can you imagine? So they told everybody stay home.
Yep, and just wait for the phone to ring.
Wait for the call to see if you have a job or you don't have a job. Employees who are notified that they are being separated, give me a break. Why can't they just say they're in the business? Because
nobody says. Yeah, nobody says. Yeah.
Will be provided a time to meet on Thursday with a human resources representative.
So they all stay home.
And at that time, each impacted employee will receive.
Aren't we all impacted?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that the whole?
A copy of his severance report. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's classic.
And we'll put you into the hands of something called Right Management, a company that specializes in transitional programs. Jesus Christ.
How is right spelled? R-I-T-E?
It's no, and not. No. We regret having to go through this process, and we thank all.
No, be fair. They sincerely regret.
And we thank all who are impacted for their years of service and wish them all the best for their future.
Yeah. The great thing
somehow this does not. It's like breaking up with a text. It's not right. This is not.
Well, a text would have to say it more concisely. I mean, that's you do that kind of language is the language you do to protect yourself from your own bad bad karma, you know. That's grim. If anybody actually wrote a story like that, they would be summarily fired from a newspaper, and rightfully so. Yeah.
Do you know anyone?
So they're supposed to So they're supposed to stay home.
So yeah, and wait
just
to
like
find
wait
out
for the
if
phone
they're-
ring.
if
And I
they're-
guess the idea is this is less. It's likely to cause less newsroom disruption than
yeah.
having people come in and then call them up from their desks and have
That's
them
right.
like storm back and throw stuff around.
That's
or
right.
whatever.
This has been thought through.
So
And then imagine, so now after it's just a few minutes after they've completed this task. So now the calls. Can you imagine a text going back and forth trying to find out who got separated,
Right.
and
Who's
how
impacted.
Awful. And this is one of those things where even if you're not impacted and in fact have to report for work as usual, you would feel relief, but you would feel survivor's guilt. You would feel
Sure.
anger.
you probably feel overworked because you're about to have to take on a bunch
Yeah.
of other people's responsibilities.
You would be like so totally,
Yeah.
but you'd be better off than your compatriots.
Yeah. Maybe not though. if
So
that's
what
what's-
is this? So why, if there's changing? I'm sorry, but it's so awful to see things
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
But why, if they're changing? How is it the pretext of changing the home delivery system?
Well, I think
supposed
what that
to cost people their jobs?
I think that was a bit of a misnomer as well. I don't know the situation in Cleveland precisely, but I think what they're doing is they're changing from a 7-day-a-week schedule to less, printing fewer copies as they've done in New Orleans and some other markets.
Okay.
So what it amounts to is fewer newspapers, and so fewer reporters. So it's not like, oh, we're changing the paperboy's route, you're fired. It's the paperboy ain't working Thursdays and Sundays or whatever days they choose, so you're fired.
How has Pittsburgh so far avoided this? And not only that, avoided it, but have two daily newspapers.
It's pretty funny that you mentioned that, because I was just having a conversation about this with somebody this morning. Basically, it's because we have 2 newspapers.
That is it.
You can get away with that sort of stuff in a market that's non-competitive, because if you're an advertiser and you want to advertise in print, as believe it or not, some people still do. They don't have anywhere else to go in a market like Cleveland, or that's why I was kind of laughing at leading news source of Northeast Ohio,
because there isn't any other.
I mean, yeah, there is a weekly like ours there, but if you want to run, sheriff's ads or car ads or whatever, newspaper is the place to go, and that's the only place you've got. But here in Pittsburgh, you can't do that without really jeopardizing your competitive stance, and it's not even so much the readers; it's the advertisers who want to have 5-day a week or whatever ads in the print publication. If the Trib or the Post-Gazette gave up that, they'd just move to the other paper.
Okay, but I mean, the papers here, their days are numbered too in some respects. I mean, there's no way it's gonna, right?
I mean, it's
the copied anything.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, the Post-Gazette is continuing their labor discussions, and earlier this year, management said to the union, and this is again in the context of a labor negotiation, so there's every incentive in the world to kind of poor mouth it. We lost $22 million last year, and you guys have to help us find a way to patch that hole. So I think what you're likely to see is not layoffs in the newsroom so much as some people being affected out in the delivery and the drivers and the printer. In that department. So.
Well, but the newsroom is already gutted.
Yeah.
I mean, gutted. I don't recognize half the names anymore.
Well, right now that's because they're doing this is their summer. This is intern season. So.
Intern season. They have 7,000 interns.
Yeah, did you see? There's a big full page thing of all these young, fresh-faced kids.
7,000 interns.
You're just like, you poor bastards.
Yeah, bad timing, guys. So I don't know. It's sad.
And I'll say this too. I mean, because it still amazes me. A few years ago, they also have these kind of 2-year interns who are sort of. It's basically a way to get around putting them on the union contract. And I was talking to one of them, and she was being paid, and this was an Ivy League graduate. She was being paid less at the Post-Gazette than we pay a starting reporter here.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
Yeah.
And believe me, what they pay is ludicrous.
Yeah, it's because all the profit margin goes to my my hair plugs. So in my wardrobe. So that's why. Sorry, folks.
Oh God. Well, I'm sorry. That was depressing.
Yeah, that was a good start to the show.
Sorry.
No, it's a big thing. Yeah.
Okay, and here's another big thing. Bradley Manning. So this looks like it's obviously not a total victory for the administration.
Government.
Yes, but
Right.
the government, because the most serious charge was aiding the enemy.
Yeah.
And a judge, a military judge, found that to be ridiculous.
Although the charges he was found guilty of, or he also pled to some charges, would still add up. I think it was to a potential maximum of more than 125 years.
Yeah,
so.
but they said there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. And so many of these, he's should be being sentenced like right about now. So I think maybe we could find out, but I don't think he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail.
I don't know.
But what a weird case he is.
How do you mean?
How do I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's just a sad loser type. Come on! You don't think he is?
I think the guy's been in... I mean...
He's a misfit.
Well, God bless misfits is what I say.
Oh, you think what he did was heroic?
I don't know that I think it was heroic exactly. I do think that this is a difficult issue. That it's hard to. I was watching before because I knew we'd be talking about this. I was watching a debate between Jeffrey Toobin, a legal scholar who I have a lot of regard for and writes for the New Yorker, and Glenn Greenwald, who's been the reporter for the Guardian, who's been reporting so much of this stuff. And it was sort of an interesting debate, and it was one of those things where you could kind of see where both these guys were coming from.
Or you were agreeing with both of them.
Yeah, depending on whoever happened to be speaking at the time. I think Greenwald's argument was essentially, look, this is the basis of journalism, people leaking stuff. And we see, the Washington Beltway press leak stuff that's much more, that's classified at a much higher level than anything he released. And that stuff gets released all the time. You got Bob Woodward and those guys, with top secret documents, and nobody minds that or nobody ever thinks of prosecuting them because, hey, they're Beltway reporters, they're the political establishment, and probably these are leaks that the government wants to have leaked. And the big alleged sin, this is Greenwald's take, the big alleged sin of Bradley Manning is he was a low-level guy who just did this thing, and we're going to prosecute him because he's not part of that establishment. And that's why he got singled out for this kind of thing.
I think that's bull.
I don't know that I think it's bull exactly.
Bull,
I do think
there was nothing. I mean, because it was just this dump. It was just a dump of every piece of information that he could get his hands on with no regard for what damage, in fact, might be done. That's quite different than a specific leak being...
And that was the Toobin argument, was essentially you can't really compare journalism, which is sort of a thoughtful working through of this stuff, to what he did. The flip side of that argument is well, look, here's the problem. All of this at the same time, everybody's calling him out as a traitor and da-da-da-da-da. People are also saying, there wasn't really anything all that significant or newsworthy in these cables. And so, well, why were they, if that's the case, then why were so many of them classified as secret to begin with? This is sort of the problem I think we fundamentally get down to with all this national security stuff in this particular historical moment we're in, which is the government puts all this stuff behind a wall, and then we're supposed to rely on the government to tell us whether it should come out from behind the wall or not. And the presumption is always on their side. And I think there is a sense that the balance there has gotten a bit skewed.
Fine. I don't want to necessarily rely on the government to police itself in this regard and decide what is it. But on the other hand,
who do you rely on?
I do not want to rely on this geeky little loser.
I was a geeky little loser, Lynn Cullen.
This misfit who has given no thought whatsoever to possible consequences of his actions.
But then who do you want to rely on? I think that's the question.
I definitely do not want to rely on.
I'm not asking you who you don't want to rely on. Who do you rely on?
Guy.
Who do you rely on? Who do you rely on? Who's the person who's going to say, Who does that watchdog function? Is it Bob Woodward? Is that good enough for you? Because I think he's just as much a captive of
There's not a good
of that
answer to
system.
this.
No, there isn't, and that's
not
what
a
I'm
good
saying. I think
answer.
so. Yes, on the one hand, you have a government that's overzealous about sealing this stuff up, and whose motives
'cause
can't
that would be, you can
trusted.
understand where they're coming from.
And on the other hand, you have a guy who I think there's a good case that he was really reckless about all this stuff. But I don't know what the better approach is.
Well, okay, but he's no hero.
Yeah, I don't know that. Here's
and
the thing.
neither is the other one.
A lot of the people, and I've never had anybody leaking, foreign service cables to me, and I would appreciate it if people did, and it's not really my beat. But as somebody who's taken leaks from people and story leads and things like that, very often these are people who have their own motives that are sometimes less than entirely salutary.
True. That is true.
They themselves may be misfits or outliers or whatever. And that's the whole thing. Like, that's built into that kind of whistleblower mentality. If they were the type that really fit in, they would also probably be the type who swallowed the groupthink whole, and you'd never have a chance with them. It's very often the sort of misfits and the outliers that are the only people who are going to give you this stuff. And that's kind of the peril, I think, of doing this kind of stuff.
Well, here's a guy who's actually with the organization you would decide would definitely have a position on this. Mm-hmm. He's with the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. So these guys,
Yes.
they're for leakers.
Yes.
Okay. He even said about this, we always hate to see a government employee who was trying to publicize wrongdoing convicted of a crime, but this case was unusual from the start because of the scope of his release. This is a guy who would expect to go to the mat for him, and he was saying...
Can I be the cynical about this for a second?
Sure.
I mean, the other thing that's separate that makes Bradley Manning weird is he gave this stuff to Julie in a song. He didn't give it to the New York Times or the Washington Post. And so in a way, there's a bit of, you could argue, the cynical take on this would be there's a bit of turf protection going on here as well. They didn't have a stake. They didn't have a stake in this guy, and that's the other thing that sort of makes him an outlier. And I think that is the sort of weird thing that the sort of WikiLeaks paradigm sets up for us is it's now possible for these guys to go completely unfiltered. And I think at the same time there's that going on, I do think there's, to a large extent, it's not at all clear to me how skillfully the media has been examining some of this stuff. Because let's be honest, would we be having the kind of debate we're having now about this national security regime if it weren't for Glenn Greenwald and the stuff that's come out in the Guardian? And I don't think we would.
Okay. All right. Listen to this.
All right. I'm ready.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we'll have to wait.
Uh-oh. We have reached the
20-minute mark. Boy, you hit that right on the thing.
I did, right? Now it's built in.
Not only that, but you built tension and then...
And I was...
We'll be right back.
Totally by mistake.
Okay. Let's try to...
No intention of building tension.
Boost you.
Okay, all right. We will be back.
With a surprising thing.
Just a moment.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for a look at the campaign finance reports. Plus, Wiz Khalifa, Yes, David Allen Coe, The Space Pimps, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone with GPS-enabled listings at citypapermobile.com.
This is the sound of a flat-screen television hurled off a building. Now the new bike your kid wants. These are the things you could have all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Use Energy Star light bulbs and appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
I know. I'm just trying to see if Manning got sentenced. Not seeing anything. Okay. So...
As you were about to say, before you were so rudely interrupted.
Yeah, so this is on the, the same, it's in the same neighborhood.
Okay.
This story, what happened to it? about the federal appeals court in, I don't know what circuit, in a significant win for law enforcement.
Oh, that's what you like to hear.
Listen to this. Mm-hmm. A federal appeals court said Tuesday that government authorities could extract historical location data directly from telecommunications carriers without a search warrant. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, they now, these judges in the Fifth Circuit have said that a warrantless search, mm-hmm. quote, was not per se unconstitutional because location data is, quote, clearly a business mm-hmm. record.
That's what I figured out.
And therefore not protected by the Fourth Amendment.
Right.
So understand that what location data, when your cell phone's on, the cops could get my phone stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And know exactly where. They would know I was at the mm-hmm. Pirate game last night. Mm-hmm. They would know sort of from the moment I was there and the moment I left, probably. Mm-hmm. They would know. They would be able to put me in certain places at certain mm-hmm. times. And this court is saying they do not need a search warrant. The reason being... Because
your location as tracked by your cell phone provider is their business, but belongs to them, not to you. And they don't have a
but
stake
it's
in
my
your privacy.
It's my meanderings.
Right,
and
sure. Right. And the phone company doesn't have a stake in your privacy rights. So it's a very slick little thing there. Yeah. I read, I've seen this stated elsewhere before, but Joseph Stalin could only have dreamed of giving all of his subjects cell phones to walk around with.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, so all of this stuff about secrecy government we have the sense, is keeping more and more secrets from us.
Yeah.
At the same time,
we have fewer and fewer.
We have fewer and fewer.
Yeah.
But the whole.
Well,
it's technologically driven.
Yes, it is.
And because it's technologically driven, I don't see any I've said this before. I've argued this before. I don't see any stopping it.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of an interesting sort of backlash to some of this stuff. I think it might even be Julian Assange who's just said, the internet, of all people, Mr. WikiLeaks, the internet. Early on we talked about it as this thing to free ourselves from the boot heel of government oppression and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it's actually a device for societal control.
Exactly.
And you think about, okay, so let's take it another step further. And this is something that Julian Assange has said. Put aside the privacy concerns. Think about how many stories, especially in an era where newspapers are going to 3 days a week or 4 days a week. Think about now how many newspaper stories are only going to exist in one place, and that's on a server up in the cloud somewhere or something, right? An electronic record. Think about how easy it would be to disappear that stuff. We all remember 1984, where Winston's job was taking old newspaper stories and feeding them into a giant shredder, and then creating news stories as to to reflect the interests of those in power at the time. It doesn't even have to be that difficult. You can just delete. Hit delete, and it's over. Gone.
All right.
And then so all these things that we think we have, this thing that we think of as text, we still think, I think, of things as having text and that there's some historical record somewhere. All of that stuff now is so much more ephemeral than it was before, potentially.
I don't know. I don't know why I feel so...
And then you put
I just feel like it's almost useless to even. I know you have to fight, but I just don't see how the little guy wins on this one.
Well, I think fundamentally it has. We're going to need some different Supreme Court justices, but that happens. Supreme Court justices come and go, although maybe not as quickly as we'd like. But the flip side of this is, at the same time, we're seeing the militarization of our own police force. Salon, the website Salon has been running installments from a guy who's written a book entirely about this, just how militarized police have gotten. And there was a funny installment yesterday where he was talking about this, and we all kind of know this. I think the amount of Homeland Security money that's going to local police forces. And there was a funny little bit about how somewhere down in Texas, they had their Homeland Security drone crash into their Homeland Security funded assault vehicle. You know, it was just like, but unfortunately, you know, it's not usually that harmless.
Well, you know, I was squawking about this when that guy was holed up in Latrobe.
Yes, right.
And you saw TV covered it breathlessly, and it was live, and they had this little gizmo that had a battering ram on it, but that could also make make pancakes and bacon and throw them around the neighborhood. It's just these little gizmos that can do anything. I mean,
now wait, there's bacon?
Yeah,
Suddenly,
really, I cannot imagine. So I saw that the Post-Gazette, like a week afterwards, did a story on what was that little gizmo, and the story was totally without any question of whether such a amazing little thingamajig is really necessary.
Yeah, I mean,
and it is not necessary. It cost, that little one gizmo cost $250,000, and the state police own it, and they like it so much that they're going to buy another one. It's only been used twice,
right?
But we're going to buy another one because it's so much fun to play with.
My uncle, God rest his soul, used to say, "There's never been a weapon made that somebody hasn't found a use for."
There you go.
There's kind of tools. I remember when I first sort of realized this was going on was a year or two ago, and again, it was just a tiny little story. Some guy, I think it was in South Oakland, had holed himself up in his house.
Yeah, well, that's what.
Nobody.
No hostages.
No hostages. He was there. I think
and
he was starting to kill himself. No, they called SWAT out for that.
That's what they do now. That's
really,
what they do now.
Yeah, because otherwise,
because you have those toys, and you got
SWAT.
Them.
Yeah, so what else are you going to do with them?
And in this instance, you have a guy who they believe and probably had been part of a robbery of some drugs from a pharmacy. Okay. Do you need 100 million, armored humans and their little toys? He's in that house. Yeah. He ain't going anywhere. Yeah. There's 1 million of you, and there's one of him. Why don't you just wait him out?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew. The minute I saw the whole scene, that guy's dead. He's dead. This is the way it always ends. And they always say it's unclear whether did he take his own life or did we, and either way, the minute they overreact that way, it doesn't end well. Except they get all. Yeah. They get their rocks off.
But you can see that there's a sort of entertainment law enforcement complex.
Yes,
which
and everybody
again,
just
I think
watches
it started with cops probably on TV. I think was when we sort of really entered the terminal phase. But yeah, I mean, you look at some of this stuff that's happened. Where who was it? Steven, the action actor, Steven Seagal. Thank you. I was doing the American Sign Language for ponytail back here. Steven Seagal shows up. So the police, and it was that jackass out in Arizona, that sheriff who's so awful. So they can bust in on somebody's supposed cockfighting ring,
right.
And they go in with a giant tank which runs over the guy's dog in the name of preventing animal cruelty. And he's there for a TV show. And that to me is it is the total. I mean, it's not too far away from feeding Christians to the lions.
No, and I'm just wondering why the paper would have run that piece with no.
Yeah.
I mean, no question. No question at all about, is this necessary?
Yeah. Are there better ways to handle a sort of shut-in?
When you're, and when you're serving a warrant, is it really necessary to have 100 people? And I mean, there's all these instances where they do, as you know, if you've been reading that stuff.
Yeah.
Where they get the wrong person, people's lives are destroyed, or they come ramming their way into someone's house to serve a warrant. The person who's being served thinks they're being attacked by and maybe they get a gun.
Yeah.
There was a case like that here. Remember, the guy got in. He's.
In the
they
FBI
never went.
situation.
And the FBI agent was killed.
Yeah.
Who knows? Really,
you don't. I mean, do I as
you get people get killed on both sides needlessly.
Yeah.
Because these guys have too much friggin' testosterone and want to play with their toys.
Yeah, I think that's part of it for sure.
Part of it?
I mean,
That's it. It's unbelievable.
I mean, in fairness, I do think there's another part of it too, which is this sheer profusion of firearms in this society. Oh. It's not unreasonable for police to worry about the firepower in a lot of these cases. So, I mean, should put that out there. But I do think, again, we talked previously about, that protest I was at a few weekends ago, where the officer just made a decision to hold the police back.
That is so unusual.
And that to me is
so unusual. She told all the cops and any gizmos they had, go away.
Just hang back. Just hang back. We'll redirect traffic for a couple hours. It's a Sunday night.
And it worked well.
Yeah, and the irony of that and sort of the code of that story, I don't think we did talk about this, although I wrote about it last week. A few days later, those same protesters went down to the 5th floor of City Hall to present this sort of list of demands to city officials, including Mayor Ravenstahl.
And it was not
Mayor Ravenstahl did not show up. Those protesters did a sit down. Yeah, I know. Now you feel like everybody else in town. Those protesters then went they basically did a sit-in outside his office for 12, 15 hours. They went over to his house at 6 o'clock in the morning. They left the thing taped to his door. And now the police say they're stepping up patrols of the mayor's
house.
So it's a perfect example. Threatened. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of what happened that night. They escalate it by refusing to treat people like human beings. And then guess what? Sometimes those people, and I don't want to misstate anything here. These women showed up at the house. They knocked on the door. They left a thing, and then they left. There was no point at which any kind of vandalism or anything happened. They left. But the point remains. He chose not to recognize them or their pleas at the office. They went to his house. There's a tendency, and because they went to his house, now the police are treating everybody who's going to be on the street as some kind of thing. It's just this escalation of tension.
Absurd. When they're
because we refuse to sort of acknowledge the humanity of the people on the other side of them.
That's right. Speaking of our illustrious mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's still this grand jury thing going on. The feds are still What is going on? It's like they're nosing around. This is what, in a way, I'm starting to think there's an abuse going on here. How do they get to just keep vacuuming everything they can? Because eventually they're going to come up with something, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like they even have what is going on? They're calling, if you ever had a conversation, just a... at a party with Luke Ravenstahl, you might be getting a subpoena.
Can you imagine being like the city of Pittsburgh employee who hasn't been subpoenaed yet? A, you'd feel totally left out. Like, I guess I wasn't that important. And B, now you're covering everybody else's desk for them while they're down. It's just like all of your coworkers went on a 3-hour smoke break down Grant Street.
So, okay. No one seems to understand how. So now we have a former chair of the Stadium Authority.
Stadium Authority, right?
Who's a friend of Peduto's.
Yeah.
Who Ravenstahl kicked off the board.
Yeah, there was no subterfuge about that. He straight up kicked her off the board. Right. I mean, and somebody who I see we're describing as a friend, a friend of the mayor.
That means what, a lover?
I'm not going to speculate on the air about what that means, but somebody who the relationship appears to be personal rather than professional.
Yes.
Yeah, social.
Okay.
So,
why would that be?
I mean, the thing is, these grand juries are,
and this
by
has
definition,
a former friend, I think.
I think it said did it say former friend? It said a former board member. I don't know if it said a former friend.
All right, but I think I've seen that woman described as a former friend, which only means
once you get called into to a grand jury proceeding, there's probably a sort of reevaluation of your relationship at that point, I think.
All right.
Friends don't let friends be subpoenaed. I mean, this is, I think, to kind of speak to your point. I mean, this is the issue with a grand jury proceeding is they are essentially a license to go on all kinds of fishing expeditions. And of course we don't know. We don't know whether they've already got the goods on him on 12 other things that they're planning to indict him for, or whether they're still desperately looking for something to find. And you just have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised to see Debbie Lestitian there. And again, because this is the Stadium Authority. I mean, again, what happened there I mean, it wasn't pretty, but it was also just I mean, this is going to sound stupid, but a completely above board abuse of authority. This is what mayors can do. And he's not the first one to do it, and he probably won't be the last. Bouncing her off the board because she wasn't with the program.
Right way,
she wasn't with the program is within a mayor's
And the
purview.
program was to give away a bunch of
Land.
incredibly precious land on the north side, to give it away to guys who could pay a lot more, but this had to do with this
in conjunction with the Steelers' wishes. So you do wonder. So are there concerns about undue influence brought to bear there? Because there have been in the past sort of interesting connections between people. People forget this now, but there was a sort of celebrated incident where the mayor was detained by police at a Steelers game.
This is true.
Early on in his tenure, and so you just wonder, and I guess that's the problem with these grand jury things. Everybody
was he the mayor already?
No, he was not the mayor.
He
I think he was still in city
council.
council, but it was right. This happened just shortly before his ascension.
And he was drinking.
Yeah, I'm hazy on the details.
Yeah.
He was never, and what it was is he was never arrested, and that's what he said at the time. I was never arrested, but he was detained.
He was detained
by police.
Well, you figure out the difference.
Yeah.
If you cannot leave.
Yeah. Yeah, probably half the guys in Guantanamo were never arrested.
But they sure as hell are detained now, ain't they?
So yeah, I mean, I do. There are sometimes you do have. You do have sympathy for the guy in a way, right? I mean, who would want all of their friends, associates, social acquaintances dragged before grand jury?
Yes, but
I'm just thinking of my ex-girlfriends alone. It would be an ugly.
What a parade!
Yeah.
Woo! What a parade! Okay, we have a Ray has written.
Yeah.
As to the WikiLeaks issues, if the government has the tacit approval of the press to call everything classified, what corruption will ever be exposed? Mm-hmm. I am of the opinion that overreaching has its own checks and balances, in that no one's arms are big enough to hold everything without something slipping away. Mm-hmm. If, in fact, the government has created such giant piles of undeservingly classified documents that some low-level nobody can release massive amounts of it without the government being able to stop him, I think the one that should go to jail is the ass who created unprotectable treasures, who did all this
all the classified.
top secret. I suspect, though, governments from beginning of time have always sought to classify their information as not fit for the people's eyes. Okay, so Ray goes on to say we have to change our paternalistic government attitude that has created a militarized society full of lockstep agreement with all things labeled patriotic. We should not always have to stay in line and behave ourselves. And it might take from time to time a sad little pathetic fellow, I wonder who he's talking about, to point out the holes in the bucket.
Yeah. Ray! Yeah, he actually said that far better than I did, as a matter of fact.
Well, Ray often does. He writes very well, right?
Yeah.
Holes in the bucket.
Yeah.
What's the song I'm thinking of?
There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza. Dear Liza.
There's a hole in the bucket.
Yeah.
Dear Liza, a hole.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, well, that goes. There's
go
various
fix it.
things, and so go fix it, and he needs something to fix it, and he needs something to do that, and then at the end of it, somehow he needs a pail of water, and the problem is there's a
hole in the bucket. Oh, that's right. It goes all the way around.
Yeah. If you had a 2-year-old at home, you'd be.
These
things would be much fresher in your mind.
Guess what time it is?
Oh, you're schooling me now.
I know. I am. Guys, final break. We'll be right back.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Babies come with lots of decisions.
Cloth or disposable? Crib or bassinet?
So when it comes to protection, go with the safest, most effective choice, vaccination. Get all the recommended vaccines for your baby by age 2 to protect your child against 14 serious childhood diseases. For more reasons to vaccinate, talk to your child's doctor. Go to cdc.gov/vaccines or call 800-CDC-INFO. A message from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. This week, great deals on vet services from Bellicou. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. Bergbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay. I'm embarrassed to admit this. This Upper St. Clair bullying hazing story, I don't really know what the deal is. Can you just...
That's
my alma mater, so I have a certain personal interest, but I have just not followed it.
I read a story. He's referring to a gentleman who wrote about this. He was very angry. A former teacher who says that he's
a former teacher at Upper St. Clair?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think he makes that clear. But he's just outraged by this and the sense that the community, we're talking about a hazing incidents in which I don't know the extent of it. I don't know how many kids, but I think it's a ton
Yeah,
of
it says 40 or so freshmen.
entering freshmen. Kids will be going to Upper St. Clair High School in a month, right? Mm-hmm. And they're being sort of terrorized by seniors, guys who will be seniors, who are... subjecting them to physical hazing,
paddling,
and humiliation. I mean, it's violence and humiliation, right? And they're videotaping these attacks like idiots.
Yeah.
And so there's tapes of these attacks, and people, and they're making the rounds, which further And so far, I guess nothing really has happened to the people who are knowingly. How is that not a assault and battery? I mean, when is something just, it's bullying or it's boys will be boys? I mean, you're not allowed to jump somebody and attack them physically.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'll say this. I mean, as somebody who grew up in Upper St. Clair and was... How do we describe Bradley Manning as a pathetic outcast loser? I mean, I will say... to the best of my knowledge, there wasn't widespread paddling of underclassmen, and this was in the mid to late 1980s. So let's not pretend that this has always been going on.
No, so this was not a tradition. He says, the guy who's writing, the teacher says, I know you would share my outrage. And... especially I don't think that has anything to do with it. As a matter of fact, I think he thinks that it's most unbelievable because this is, he said, a district with, there's money there and academic excellence.
Yeah.
And I think often, if you look at where this kind of stuff goes on, it's exactly in those places, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's where the rich kids are.
Yeah. Look, I lived in Dormont for a few years. I never saw anything happen there like you see in Bohemian Grove. You know what I mean?
No, but it's
nothing goes on. Nothing goes on at Keystone Oaks like that goes on at Harvard or Yale if you try to join Skull and Bones, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It is
It's something that has to do with the way the elite schools their children for the real world. Not pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, this guy says your listeners need to hear. Oh no. And and what else? Most importantly, this guy is concerned because he thinks there's not going to be any
serious consequences
to this action.
Yeah.
He also said he was bullied nearly every day of his high school career at Mount Lebanon.
Right next door in a similar district.
He says, I've always been horrified by bullying, which never occurred in my classroom in the 35-plus years of my career, of my teaching career. Anyway, so I don't know. So I saw there was one little story about it, not a lot more, and I don't know. But I hope they get these little jerks. You know what? They should be subjected to the same thing. I mean, what kind of...
Yeah, but they're...
And so
that's not the way it works. Okay. Everybody's parent's a lawyer, for one thing, so you have to have some sort of compassion for the administrators there, that they're going to, anything they try to do is going to result in some protracted dispute with people who have the wherewithal to fight it off. Yeah, in a way, I mean, this is also the same school district I can recall a few years ago where there was a series of sexual assaults that happened. And again, there were some questions about how seriously the district was taking that and whether there was a concern about an undue concern about sort of the appearances and maintaining that, and then whether that was factoring into how serious.
This is also the district that the school board was taken over by yahoos.
Yeah, I think that particular situation. Yeah, I think a couple of those guys got voted off, if I recall correctly. But I'm not as up to speed.
These
on
were
that
guys. It's classic Upper St. Clair. I mean, they were doctors and. Respectable men and they got on the school board so they could destroy public education.
You got to remember, this is the community that bestowed unto the nation Rick Santorum. Rick Santorum got his start, representing, it was the former seat of Doug Walgren, a perfectly good, moderate Democrat, right, and a good person. And Rick Santorum ousted that guy in Congress and then went on to bigger and better things. So
running movie studios, with the help, the financial help, and the help at the ballot box from people who live in that community. So, again, I hear where your correspondent is coming from, and this stuff is shocking anywhere. But let's not pretend that. That insanity has anything to do with what income bracket you happen to be in. No, in fact, I think it goes up. I think these kinds of behaviors sound like exactly an Upper St. Clair district. Yeah. They don't sound like, I don't know.
I mean, the one thing you don't know, the one thing, of course, you don't know is because the fact that they were dumb enough to do this on social media, it sounds like, probably raised some attention that it might not otherwise have gotten. So you can't be sure that it's not happening in other places. But yeah, I guess I can't say nobody was getting paddled when I was there, but there was enough going on there that you could see the tendency for that kind of group.
Yeah.
Groupthink.
Okay, well, so that's your former neighborhood. Meanwhile, Jess's current neighborhood is under threat.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Jess lives in Lawrenceville, and we got these nasty Asian mosquitoes.
Did they show up right after Jess moved there? Is that what happened?
Wait a minute. Is this racist? Nasty Asian mosquitoes?
No, they are,
Well, think about it. When we talk about those bees that everybody's so afraid of, it's Africanized,
right, sure.
Vicious Africanized bees. Yeah. And now we got nasty Asian mosquitoes.
Right. They are kind of like ninjas.
Okay, but now are we... Yeah. Okay, whatever. But...
Well, they're used to... What happened in the good old days when we used to inflict invasive species on other cultures? Remember? Like, you could wipe out a whole nation of people just by stepping off the boat. And now we're on the other end.
Well, the whole world. I mean, there's no keeping anything in your own little bailiwick anymore. But I really don't understand why people aren't more careful about emptying any standing water. With all the rain we've been having, you know what I do? No. After a rain, I go out in my yard, exactly where water collects, and I dump it. I don't want any mosquito to have any ability to breed in my backyard. And they say they don't need anything. They need the littlest bit of water stuck in a overturned
think about that. If you live on
bottle cap.
And it seems to me there are streets in Lawrenceville that would qualify for this. Say you live on a street that's lined with brick. Water can puddle up even in the little space between the bricks. You need like I read about it. You basically these mosquitoes can lay eggs in the amount of water that would be in a bottle cap.
Yeah,
like the top of a bottle.
Right.
So just think about how many places on a street, not in your backyard or whatever, but just on the street, little puddles, no larger than that. It'd be pretty difficult.
What worries health officials is the mosquitoes' unusually aggressive disposition.
Yeah.
Mixed with the potential that these mosquitoes are carrying West Nile virus or dengue fever.
Man, that's the one
or heartworm virus that'll get your dogs or your cats. And they say the mosquitoes are nearly impossible to control.
Yeah.
So they're not fooling around. The health department is saying stay indoors.
Yeah.
People have to empty all, plastic wading pools when not in use, drain water from plastic coverings on swimming pools and outdoor furniture, fill in depressions on the lawn to prevent accumulation of water, repair leaky faucets that can create a pool of stagnant water. You can see why somebody could get really crazy at that.
And you know what I heard? I heard the mosquitoes are especially drawn to people with pink dye jobs. So Jess, little tip there.
Because she's very allergic to.
Are you really?
Yeah, she gets really. Yeah, I am too. Approximately 4 cases of dengue fever. Dengue fever.
Dengue. I don't know how to pronounce it. Dengue.
Are diagnosed in Pennsylvania.
It's bad. That's a bad one.
Yeah, that's a bad one. I mean, these things can kill you. It can kill you. And they said they found some of these Asian mosquitoes in West Mifflin last year or something.
Yep.
And the health department said they went door to door and talked to people about the importance of, they consider this a serious public health risk. You got bird baths? Empty them. Forget it. Let the bird figure out another way to get wet, right?
Yeah.
Stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah. This is our future. I hate to tell folks this. I mean, it's going to be more like this as time wears on. Because of global trade, because of global warming, it's going to be possible for pests that are currently confined to southern states to make their way up here. It's going to be a long, ugly season.
Mm-hmm. Here is something. Should we do this?
I don't know. I didn't read it.
I'm not even going to say this is not necessarily for air, unless you want.
Okay. So
okay, we want. We're always looking for stuff to talk about. Okay.
Sure. Okay.
It's an email. I was in a conversation with some people in the know. Mm-hmm. We had a get-together who feel that there will not be any indictment of Luke because most of his sins were of an odious personal behavioral type. And whatever you're thinking now, you're correct. These people were upset that the ones who have already fallen, like Chief Harper, were in some cases caught up in trying to protect Luke. This is my sense, too, from the publicity and scandal that his odious personal behavior could get him in. Many of these fall guys have lost their careers and their reputations. I think the FBI sees this injustice and is trying its best to make Luke stand up, even if it's for an extraneous crime. In other words, you're thinking the FBI just sort of wants to take him down because they think he's disgusting, but they don't know how to do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm reminded of the fact that Tom Murphy was once ran afoul of our federal U.S. attorney here for a contract negotiation. So it's if you're looking for justice in these things, it's sometimes a little hard.
To find.
Yeah.
Well, geez, I don't know. See, but that there again, we'll never really know.
Well, you might.
We might.
You might. I mean, anything can happen.
Okay, so the Republicans.
Speaking of anything that can happen.
Yeah. So they're continuing this crazed crusade to trip up Obamacare.
Yep.
They are continuing their war on poor people. Mm-hmm. How do they sleep at night? That's all I want to know. Okay, so there is a group that is funded by the Pew Charitable Trust and Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has done a report about the impact of some of these, what the Republicans have been up to, like with the food stamp program. And they're saying that people, millions of Americans, over 5 million Americans, if the Republicans have their way, will lose their food stamps, and they're going to go hungry.
Yeah.
And their children are going to go hungry.
Yeah.
What?
Well, Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? I mean, right?
God.
I just, again, the thing that strikes you is you look at, there's just some maps, I think we might have talked about this last week.
Who gets the food stamps.
And they're all in the...
It's all in the red states.
Yep.
It's all over the South.
Yep.
What is that about then? It's their own people.
Yeah, but again, there's who are you going to vote for? There's in a lot of those states, the Democratic Party is barely a shell of itself, and especially in some of those districts, you can bet that. In some of those pockets of poverty, they have a Democratic representative, but they've gerrymandered them out, so the delegation is going to be mostly Republican and mostly safe from any kind of challenge, except potentially from the right,
which will only force them
to do even more crazy stuff,
draconian and vile.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
weird. I mean, the Republican Party, you can see, is self-destructing. It is. But it's taking the country with it.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of Americans who are rooting it on. Well,
it's sad, isn't it? You think about the sweep of Western history, how we came up from nothing, the earliest Greeks, the ideas of democracy and the discoveries of science to protect us from viruses, and all of these steps we've taken to better and better and better our lives. And somehow within my lifetime,
it's all
there's now a viable political movement of people who look at those 2,000 years of history and just say, screw it.
That it was missed. No, in fact,
it's just a big step in the wrong direction. Maybe David Ricardo or John Smith or some of those other guys were all right. Adam Smith, I should say. But other than that, just a big waste of time. Science, don't need it. Basic social welfare programs, can't have it, can't afford it.
How do you? Yeah, well, I know we see that, but
because they have their own alternate
universe,
alternate history and alternate facts. And
my friend was telling me about how her mother-in-law sent her some email the other day about how we've got to stop him, and it was about Obama and how everything is being
right.
And what these people, and I mean, they're fervent about it. They think the world is ending.
Yeah.
And they don't even really understand that what's really got them completely freaked is that there's a black guy in the White House.
Yeah. And that in a way, their world kind of is ending. A lot of things are changing for them, and I'm sympathetic to that.
Oh,
but Jesus, did you see the great interview on Fox with the?
Oh, how
to me,
dare a Muslim write or study Christianity?
The best part of that whole interview to me, there were a lot of howlers, but to me, in a way, it was sort of a quiet moment, but the most telling is she finally asks him, and I think because she just couldn't think of anything else to say at that point, so she was forced to actually ask him a substantive question, which was, well, what does your book have to say about Jesus?
Oh.
Halfway into the interview, she finally gets around, and he launches into an answer that I thought was very polished, as you would expect. He seems like a smart guy, and he wrote a book and everything. Very polished, very nuanced answer about what he thought about Jesus. And that was, Jesus was a radical who posed an existential threat to Rome.
Right.
Which is
true.
Most Christians believe that, as far as I know. And he becomes this champion for the dispossessed and for the powerless. And he gives his life for that cause, and in the process, and this is almost his exact words, founds the greatest religion in history.
Is that what he said?
That's what he said. And her response was, yeah, right. Now I want to get to this thing that this other guy said about you. Here he is actually feeding up what his book says, and none of it is really the kind of thing that even a Fox News listener can really disagree with. And she just doesn't. It didn't fit her script. She wanted to get back on the script, which is here's some other crap that somebody else who posted this stupid article on Fox News had to say about you. Let me get your response, because that's what journalism is. It's just taking right-wing crazy talking points and then throwing them in your face and seeing what you do.
Oh, God. Okay.
That's fair and balanced.
Yeah, right. Okay, we're almost done.
Yep.
Ray, who I believe lives in Lawrenceville, too.
Does he?
Yeah. Ray says, mosquitoes are the least of our worries, I assume, in Lawrenceville. Unless they love Pabst Blue Ribbon and skinny jeans. Ray. And Gigi writes, of note, Lyme disease is much more prevalent than West Nile virus. As far as bird baths go, one can buy a disc-like item called a dunk, yes, to put into it that keeps the mosquitoes from breeding. It contains BT, a substance harmless to humans and birds, but kills mosquitoes. So you can still provide needed water for the birds, yet not breed mosquitoes. Thank you, Gigi. You are absolutely correct.
I did not know that, so I learned something today.
I just want you to remember one thing as we go on with the rest of our day. Kill mosquitoes. Especially those nasty Asian ones.
So Glasgow tomorrow?
I believe so.
Okay, well, very good.
Okay, and I just want to say, although it seems like it's
Decades.
It seems like it's
this?
asking too much.
Okay.
No, because I just wanted to say, go Bucks!
Huzzah.
See yins tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.